start the recordings so quickly because we end up with lots of time at the beginning, and we're trying to, you know, refine, make things more effective, more skillful. And so let's begin today on this day, this 4th of July day, when there was a whole movement of people committed to freedom. A whole movement of people committed to quality and freedom. And I believe we are as committed, by the way, to those equalities and to that freedom, and also to some kind of ongoing relief from suffering. And because we've now, with the technologies and other things we sometimes see as hindrances, but as a result of those as well, we're now also witness to the realities of both suffering and really as much so if we're open to looking at the reality of the possibilities for the end of suffering. And these are the noble truths, aren't they, in really bright form for me most recently. And so I was thinking about, you know, how to speak to that. And Jeff Foster here, this is not really, I wouldn't call it a poem quite, wrote a little bit about that, how to hold it all. And I'm wondering if we could get a few people to read it. And so rather than, you know, throw your hand up, Dennis, I'm going to let you start. So Dennis has his hand up. So Dennis, what I'd like you to do is read the first paragraph and then go back onto mute if you would. And then I'm just going to let somebody else come in and read the second, and then come off of mute and read it and go back on mute, and we'll just see how it works. Because there's a few paragraphs. There's actually one below it, but I'll make sure that I move that along with the reading. So Dennis, if you would, you're going to be starting us out. So if we could just establish ourselves, and rather than stare at the words waiting for the end of the paragraph, what I'll just naturally do is do a gentle clack, which means that's done. And if you're interested, you can unmute and come on to the next. All right, Dennis, so when you're ready, I'm going to move this up a little bit so we're not staring at the title, which we don't need, which is called Empathy by Jeff Foster. And if it helps you to look at the words, just to sink it in a little bit, feel free to do that as well. Dennis, whenever you're ready, thank you.
Okay, thank you. The most beautiful quality of all in a human being, in my humble opinion, the ability to listen deeply, to listen from presence, from stillness, to listen without trying to fix someone or change them or save them, the ability to allow another to be exactly as they are.
Not giving unsolicited advice, not lecturing them about the latest psychological research or the most true spiritual teaching, not trying to mold them, manipulate them into matching a concept of who they should be, not projecting your own trauma or traumatic answers all over them. Just listening with an open mind and an open heart and a receptive nervous system, allowing them to breathe, to express, to weep, to question, to be completely unique, to expand into the space, to discover their own truth.
I have met world experts in intimacy, relationships, and honest communication who aren't able to do this. I have met spiritual gurus, so-called enlightened masters, expert psychologists, and life coaches who are utterly unable to do this. I have met popular teachers and authors on listening from the heart, holding space, pure awareness, and embodied spirituality who are unable to do this.
We are at It Is a Rare Gift for anyone who'd like to read.
It is a rare gift, the ability to allow others to be exactly as they are, broken, whole, sad, angry, afraid, lost, awake or asleep, whatever. To listen to them with every fiber of your being, to receive them through the senses, to listen like the wild animals of the forest, to swaddle them in undistracted, fascinated attention.
To envelop them in a silent, warm presence. To make them feel in those precious moments that you are together, like they are the most beloved one in the whole universe. When you sense this kind of sacred listening from someone, it's unmistakable. It cannot be manufactured. It cannot be faked. It is utterly rare and holy. It is nothing less than unconditional love. Your nervous system senses it and rejoices. And so with these words, let's prepare to sit. Establish yourself supported, as relaxed as might be workable. Upright, dignified. And drawing from that inner dignity, the capacity for empathy, the seed that we possess for all connection. May this practice be of benefit to all beings everywhere, without exception. Let it radiate within and then without, far and wide, touching all things and all beings, omitting none, freeing us all. And so we're going to begin by waking down, allowing the mind to come home, to rest a bit in the body. Just the sense of the body in the wide lens of awareness, nothing specific, just holding this body, noticing its flow-like qualities, changing sensations. Just establishing presence. Embodied. And if you're noticing by necessity, it takes a few drops of the breath, not to be holding it, not to be in concepts, constructions, even thoughts about the body, rather than abiding directly present in the body, waking down. This is where the word sutta came from. It actually means to suture, to bring, to join, to sew together. And this is exactly what we're doing in these first few moments. Using the breath, this body as a whole breathing, as the anchor for this presence. And dropping the breath down then, beyond the nose, the throat, the chest, the belly, continuing on beyond the hips, legs, and coming to rest in the feet, and the feet in contact with the earth. Remembering the earth as our mother, a source of refuge, protection, and shelter. We can offer this out-breath to the earth, grounding, stabilizing. Connecting us back to our source. And then really feel the feet. There'll be a sense of vibration, contact, maybe hard or soft, warm or cool. And then breathe right into the feet. These few extra breaths, really making contact with the whole body, all the way down to the feet, are also offering us a refuge, a resource. Continue to let the breath flow downward, waking down. And if you're rushing down to the feet, see if on the next few out breaths you can actually make contact with this body as the breath and attention is moving downward. Touch into the chest, the belly, the weight in the hip, the contact of the upper leg, the knee, the bend, the fold, contact of the lower legs all the way down to the feet. Moving body scan. And then beyond the feet, there is another benefit, and we know this in the neuroscience. There's benefit in moving beyond the body into the earth itself. A deepened sense of grounding, support, the holding container, that which is larger than this limited body. And then moving beyond the feet with the next in-breath, we're just going to move up the body. I'm going to let you move at your own pace. But then with each in-breath, using that out-breath as a continuing anchor, ground pole, support, feeling into the body, waking down. With the in-breath, we just make a little move up and make contact, maybe with the ankle. And touching in there for a few breaths. The lower legs. The knees. The upper legs and hips. The back. Breathing up the spine, feeling into the back directly. As our friend Roshi Jones says, strong back. Feeling into the neck and the top of the back of the skull and the top of the head. And coming down the front, softening the whole front of the body. The eyes, the jaw. The throat and the chest. And then feeling into the shoulders and allowing the breath to wash over the arms. And rest for a few breaths in the hands. Coming back up the arms and touching in not only to the chest and the breath, but there in the diaphragm and the belly. And then allowing that softening. Releasing the grip so that we can truly be present. Noticing not only the qualities of the breath, and you'll begin to notice where the slight tensions, tightness, or gripping is. And in the recognition, we can simply open, not being caught in that habitual knot, maybe just a little bit more released. And then allowing the attention to rest somewhere within that breathscape. And then committing oneself fully. Abide here, breath by breath, in breath and out breath. Great authors, gurus, spiritual masters do not have the capacity for this necessarily, but you do. And this is realized breath by breath by this fierce commitment and intention. Be here, be present. Beginning with oneself, the base for all empathy, all love, all compassion, all kindness, all care begins right here. And be watchful of the tendency to bear down. See if we can wake down, but it has a lightness and ease and availability. Let go of the face, the shoulders. Do not bar yourself against yourself. With contraction. And no matter what else is happening, seeing if you notice the very nature of the mind to attend and attune, awareness itself dropping in. It is necessary to first know how things are, to be willing to directly experience. This is the base of all empathy. To drop in to experience itself, rather than all the proliferation, the papancha of thoughts about this and that. We let them go again and again for the reality and the miracle of this one breath. Empathy is cultivated like love, compassion, and kindness with the whole body. And this beautiful belly, this beautiful breath have so much to tell us. They're natural thermometers for how we actually are by very sensation. Can we drop in fully? This has an openness, a receptivity in it that one-pointed attention can eliminate. And so we're not just zeroing in on the breath, we're holding the direct experience of the breath in the body. And listening deeply, opening to moment by moment change of sensations. Not analyzing or evaluating at all, but directly, deeply experiencing. Moving closer. To the truth of your aliveness, your humanness. The capacity to know. And then from this knowing others. We now recognize that trauma itself is the disconnect from this self and this knowing. And so we're gentle as we wake down. The gentleness suggests that we begin with something somewhat neutral, like the breath, if that's true of the breath and the sensations for you. And if it isn't, then finding another somewhat neutral place for contact. It could be the feet, as we said, the hands, or another sense store like sound. If you can stay in the breathscape, this is useful. It has a lot of extra information and data for us here, the second brain, really. Some call it the mirror of the mind. With each breath, we're looking in the mirror. Waking down is unifying. That capacity which knows with the object, body, unifying, non-separating, joining, becoming whole. No separation. And from this deep connection, this unifying presence, there is a natural responsiveness. A regulation. An opening, an inclusion. This is how we begin to heal and become the doctor, the nurse, and the good medicine for ourselves. We draw with each breath into the deep well of our own being. And heal. healing ourselves and the world. May this practice contribute. Just taking a moment to open the whole rest of the body. The older I get, the more snap, crackle, and pop I notice. And so we're going to talk together today. One of the things that I've been really paying a lot of attention to is the direct experience of trauma that is happening for so many of us. And it's one of the reasons I will be changing some of my roles in relationships to some of the work here in the Sangha. So I will be, reducing some of my old take-ons, and it's all me, no one else. And so we're going to be even making some shifts in the newsletter. It will continue to come out, but maybe just with the schedule on some weeks, and other weeks when I feel so inspired, I'll do a little writing. But some of that's going to be changing, and we're going to be working on this over the summer a little bit so that I can devote more time, attention, and care to contributing in the way I think I can best to healing the world, me, family, and the Sangha. So those things were all a part of a some of the same ball of string. And this part, this trauma part, is where I've begun to realize that I have both a desire, number one, a deep sense of responsibility, number two, joy and a privilege also, in that that's where some of my gifts lie and where I can best contribute. So I'm going to be making some shifts as a result of that. But this reality of trauma is just pervading right now. And of course, I am able to know that in a couple ways. One is my own experience, my own quality of my own body, the quality of my own mind, the quality of my own aching, pained heart, and how to hold that well. And I've done a little training with Peter Levine and Bessel van der Kolk, and this waking down idea, this really staying as present, as available, as open, as receptive, as non-reactive, let's even say, in the body as we can, is one of the essential components to preventing trauma. I'm going to do a little checking for a moment. There's somebody off mute again. Thank you if you can help with that. A way of preventing trauma, and then also a way of healing it when it has finally occurred. And these practices, these embodied practices, are actually what we know are very, very supportive, healing, contributing to both reducing the potential for trauma, which is that separation from ourselves, actually. That's the nature of trauma, as well as then healing it after it has in fact occurred. So this practice for me is one I would really like to see people, it's very basic, right? Not so special in its way, but necessary, particularly in this time of dramatic confluence of changes, stressors, uncertainties, really this dramatic division that we're experiencing between what the truth is even. We don't even have agreement currently about truths and where they lie and where they don't lie. We now know, right, of course, that the concept of fact has become really like, is it a fact? And how does that number, what does it mean? And if I read different news sources, I have a completely different interpretation of those facts. So how to stay with ourselves, actually, that fact cannot be disputed. There is no opinion about that which I am experiencing, that which I know directly, that which I can abide as I bring mind and heart home to body. And so we're going to stay grounded and in those practices. As a result, it's so easy, isn't it, to cultivate opinions and perspectives and view. And I love the words of the Buddha in this: all view is wrong view. All view is wrong view. And what do you think that means? All view is wrong view. And why don't we start there? So there's two places. One is, how then do we hold the mind in relationship? First to ourselves, and then of course to the world. And that's number one. And this piece from which I'd like you to speak is what was your experience then as you were abiding, present, as really cultivate the beginning of cultivating all open heart qualities by this willingness to be with and in our own direct experience first. And so we can speak to those. What the view is what comes from it. And what did you notice when you dropped in? Of course, with several neuropsychologists and scientists now are calling that process waking down. So let's talk a little bit. Tell me what your experience was, what you think about the practice, not think, what your experience was in the practice, and how you see that as potentially beneficial to you. I'm going to have a sip of my gifted iced coffee here. It's my Saturday treat.
I'll say something, Diana.
Yes, Leslie. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, honey. I must have done this a zillion times, but yet today, in this process, I really sense the mind as being separate from myself. It's my mind, but I saw that I couldn't be totally present and also be in the thinking or the whatever things that the mind does. And I saw that to really be present, I had a different relationship to the mind. It just wasn't affecting me, but I could use it. I could. It's function. It was a functioning aspect for me. It had information for me, but I didn't have to hear the words of it. I could just sense it while I was being present. So, sort of worked with my intuition or something like that.
Yes, that's that very waking down quality, Leslie, that I was talking about. It's actually beyond language. It doesn't require opinion. In fact, it becomes slightly, if you sensed it, slightly distracting. The opinion, the view, the perspective taking, right, is actually a hindrance first. It doesn't mean we don't get to hold that then as a way of, right, communicating and knowing more. But really, in the experience itself, we first have to wake down, just be awareness of, right? And that awareness, the mind and body really do a joining in this open, spacious awareness that is that waking down idea. I was hoping to try to cultivate a sense of that for people today. So I'm glad you got that. It's exactly right. That's really where subject and object, this knowing set from the object really merge. And what it merges into, the neuroscience says, is complete open awareness. And yes, you also have that now as a faculty. It isn't just like somebody else doing something, it's yours. It is really the greatest quality of I amness that I know, the one that I know. And then can you see, as we're talking about it and naming these functions, can you see its necessity for healing? You can. You can go, there's no possibility for healing oneself, the world, another, or holding them without that union, that unification, that waking down, because there is no empathy possible from an opinion, from a perspective taking, from a view, right? It's still subject object. All view is subject object. This is what I was trying to say. It's limited. The view about this, the view about that, right? Wherever we place our attention, it's still a view and limited because it cannot be fully known. And that really feels, right, expansive, wide, open, inclusive, and trust it. Trust it. And that's why we get the hands on the body, don't we? Like, get me back in here. Get me to wake down so that whatever the response is, it will come from that knowing, the depth of that knowing. And we have to begin with ourselves. And like Jeff Foster's statements about empathy, right? All the knowledge in the world, all the knowing is not sufficient because it's knowing information or knowing language or knowing, but it is not this being sense. this deeply connected. And I used the word deep a couple times to get us in there, didn't I? A little more, rather than just rest lightly, surface level, kind of on the breath. This is a very different practice, isn't it? It is not light attention on the breath. No, it's not. It's a deep dive, really. And I mean this in the truest sense, into this beingness, the impulse of all life, really, as it moves through us. And of course, the language here has failed, as always, because it is ineffable. Thank you.
Thank you.
The practice was way too short. Yes, that's why we get to do it for lifetimes, they say, because it's too short. That's what I've heard. I don't exactly know for sure. I don't want to claim to, but what I do know is the concept of practice for lifetimes is to take it out of time, right? To remove this obstacle of time. The quieter my soulful becomes, the reflection, right, the more vast, the more brilliant, the more open. Then we try to use words like luminous, spacious, right? And again, all failed in a certain way. But yes, Dennis, we know what you mean. Deep dive, yeah, the deep dive. What else? Come on, say hello and offer something about your experience today. This is how we inform each other.
Hi, Diana. Hi, everyone. It's Anthony.
Hi, Anthony. Good morning.
Good morning. So we were talking about this a little bit yesterday, but I'll just kind of share this with the group in that, okay, so there's this essay that I read last night by a brilliant thinker, philosopher, kind of deep ecologist named Charles Eisenstein, who some people might be familiar with. And the essay is called The Coronation, and it has to do with essentially the global response to the current pandemic and how it's really opened up a, this is relevant, I swear, how it's really opened up an opportunity for us all to get into exactly what we've just, more or less what we've just been meditating on, which is comfort with ambiguity, comfort with uncertainty, and a willingness to open ourselves to that which with which we disagree, or that with which we're like even sometimes like immediately repulsed by or whatever.
Reaction.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So within this practice, I recognized that, and this all comes down to separateness. It all comes down to like an us versus them separateness. It all comes down to like a desire to be right, which, as we were saying, oftentimes that is what information provides us. Like oftentimes, facts as we know them provide us with the opportunity to be right in an argument, to hold our own in a, on a side or whatever, and how that, at its core could be considered an aspect of the problem of this, not to say that learning is bad, not to say that like, having information is bad, not to say that it's wrong to kind of cultivate a perspective, but to let that concretize you into a mode of thinking that is shut down to that of others is the definition of separateness. Yeah. So that's kind of what I was, meditating on in the relation to this, and in the relation to this, it's really been on my mind, and I hope it's still relevant to what we're discussing.
You beautifully just sewed together that statement I made also, which is the Buddha's own experience that all view is right. The best
Yes.
view is no view, not meaning the deep knowing at all, but talking about the side taking, the limitation, the mine perspective versus other perspective, that it all has a limitation, right? By its nature, a view has boundary and is defined versus knowing, right? Even using the participle, right? This knowing sense, which stays open, stays inclusive, stays inquiring, which is really very different. And how we can embody that actually before thinking, and that we must include it, that it's essential to knowing anything, that whatever you load the gray matter with is ultimately not sufficient. And that's what really Jeff Foster was writing about, which is all gurus, in fact, by their nature, right? All knowledgeable ones in some way have to be careful that you set yourself or others even up in this way by going, well, I like this news station because they tell the truth versus that news channel because they don't tell the truth. And right, we get into the, and actually now as I'm really looking at them all, you can clearly see it's bias. It's so obvious. The languaging really just reflects, same number, by the way, and I just did a little test for myself yesterday because my mother and I were talking. She said, you know, blah, blah number means we're all blah, blah. And I was like, what? No, because I read that number and that number really means this over here. And I caught it, you know, which is like, view taking, separating, now getting into, you know, who's got the right perspective on the number and what does it really mean? And I really just stopped to wake down. And the only thing that came out of that waking down was nothing about the number. What came out of it was I love my mother and I want her safety and I want my own so that I can love her. And the right view blows up and is not relevant. And what I was able to say to her then from that very deepened place was, I want your happiness and your well-being. And I don't really care about the number, only to the extent that it might impact that. And, you know, then it's meaningful. And we, you know, can find this way together, whatever our interpretations of the number, we still are required, aren't we, if we're going to try to do this life, to like, how do we then hold those perspectives, but more importantly than perspective, how do we hold each other in them? And I could feel her smile also at the truth of that. Don't we? Then we smile at the truth of that for ourselves and each other. And if we don't hold ourselves in this way, I don't know. I'm just going to tell you about what I know. I don't know how to do it for and with somebody else. When I'm not willing to drop into my own distress, my own happiness, my own peace, my own distress, and know, you know, from that cellular quality, from that unifying capacity, something about it, I don't think empathy is possible. I don't think it's possible. Other thoughts about this? Let's check chat and then please come online. The biology of this moment is the greatest connective event, yes, of our lifetimes. Why can't we learn something about our connectedness from this? We can. And in fact, it might be the only learning, Bill and Maureen. is actually really waking down, knowing this deep knowing something about it, and then really what we might call in a learning frame generalizing or expanding that truth to hold and include others who, says the Buddha, just as me, know this suffering and know the way to the end of suffering also. Yeah. Go ahead, Maureen.
Maureen, I thank you for this practice of waking down. It takes time to slow down, to wake down. And for all the confusion of this pandemic, the gift of going slower makes it possible for me to practice this waking down. But it does take a slower pace of life. And if we move back up into what used to be our normal, I don't want to say it's hopeless, but it's less possible to keep waking down. So thank you. I intend to do this more. Thank you.
You're so welcome. That was my personal aspiration, Maureen. I want to see people doing this at least 10 minutes, right, or 15 minutes a day, because what are we working from if we don't? We're just the crazy spin of view and opinion and perspective. And by the way, what are we noticing? It's traumatizing. Actually, it's traumatizing. That's the separation from self I was talking about. We don't have to have a car accident for that level of trauma. We just have to be in everyday life. That separation, meaning come out of our whole experience, off into some dissertation narrative about life, is as completely separating as I know separation to be. And I do it, so I know it for sure. This thinking about, things about, opinions about, planning about, really, and leaving, abandoning truly myself for some idea that holds nothing without whole being. The idea itself is nothing without its capacity to be what? Embodied and lived through you. They're just concepts and words until then. And so easy. And I noticed we had friends yesterday, and the conversation and the idea taking and making. And so finally you could tell no one's in the room. No one's in the room anymore. Just a bunch of ideas, really. And I was like, wait, let's not get together for this. This isn't helpful. It's not nourishing, nurturing. It's not healing anything. And really what I saw was, once that got named, this way of taking the ideas and dropping it back in, which is really how to take our own and each other's side then. And the end result was what? The statements that we could all rest in. This is a time of difficulty. This is a time of confusion and pain. We all must contribute to its healing. And the way to do that is to open where we would otherwise close. Right? That. And beginning with ourselves. And that's how we name trauma. Like, this truly is trauma for all of us. And we came from different socioeconomic places, different age and stage realities. So the conversation wasn't limited to homogeneous community. There was many varied, beautiful diversity. But the truth was, there is suffering here for us all. And how do we hold that in then our thoughts, words, and deeds? And we all recognize that it got away from us, this idea taking, so that we became separated from ourselves. First, our own, really the contraction in me was lost in the firing of the reaction. And though I would say I was not so unskillful, particularly in the speech, the consequence of that separation, beginning with myself, was still there. It was. And I want everyone to watch for it. It's there. You can feel that angst, that anxiety, that loneliness, that disconnect. And so really, we know that 10 to 20 minutes a day is a requirement for how to stay whole, how to stay with oneself. And really, the capacity grows infinitely. And we're 100% clear about it. To then do open that and do that with others. And if we cannot get to that, you already know, right? It will be the essential end of us. It will. If we cannot find way to begin to reunify these essential aspects. But begin with yourself like this in your daily practice. Please, please do this for all of us. And don't think about it. Do this practice or practices like it. Others? I hear someone.
I just want to thank you for that interpretation, and the way the poem was just fantastic. But the way you interpreted allowed me to remind myself to use that in different situations. Because at first I was thinking, you know, oh, I need to employ that more when I'm having conversations with my teenagers. You know, going less lecturing and more listening. But then when you talked about your talking to your mother and your friends, and I was thinking that's absolutely critical too, because as politicized as almost every conversation seems to be right now, if you want to maintain the close relationship with the person and not get caught up in people's different opinions of the current situation, you have to be able to listen to, you know, where they're coming from and not judge.
That's right. That's right.
So that was very helpful.
Yeah, so we could change out the word politicize for, reactivity,
Mm-hmm.
view-a-size, taking and making mine, and right, then we now have begun to contribute to attachments and identities. I am this, I am not that. And then that view or idea quickly becomes tribalized. And then we have whole groups that think like this and think like that. You know, we can walk down the street now, can't we? And tell someone's political party. You can literally just go, you're one of those and you're one of these. And you're very simple, out of the politicizing of, if you're this, you do that. And if you're this, you do that other thing. And so if you wear a mask, you do this. And if you don't wear, we've got all this going on. It's not actually totally accurate, number one. And I don't want to limit either myself or others to a particular politic or view. And because what do we really know from the teachings? We are all changing all the time. We're all being influenced. We're all a part of a collective confluence that's informing, affecting, influencing, and changing all the time. And so, as I know, my own views, for example, have changed throughout my lifetime, and some of them dramatically so, based on information and truths. And I don't mean data, I mean knowing. I know that if we can stay with ourselves a little bit more, we can come out of just that spinning rhetoric deeply into what is meaningful about this. And when we were able to do that, even as a group, what we could say is we all want to be safe. We all want to be happy. We all want our loved ones to be safe and happy as well. And that from that basic truth, I believe, and no deep knowing of it, I believe that all other good things can come. And while we're in the divisiveness, by the way, I think it's going to get worse. I don't think it's going to get better. I think we're going to get more divisive. I think there's going to be more intensifying. And it's why I think our practice now is all the more essential, because there has to be some holding container for it that does not completely divide and split us, either personally as a person. And remember, that's the definition of trauma, that separation from oneself in a time of critical need will equal trauma. And I believe we can be trauma preventers by this abiding capacity that we practice and train in all these moments with teenagers, moments with partners, moments with people of other persuasions, perspectives. And you see, then a whole other movement happening right alongside it with some focus on race and social justice, but it's just the whole of it is all of us. Really, how do we come together? How do we acknowledge together? How do we name the pain and suffering and the potential and the wish for its end together, ultimately beyond gender, race, political, and that is the work here. And I believe that this practice can be of benefit to that, by the way. I think we're all here working hard together. Why not iced coffee every day? Yes, well, there's a really solid reason. I can't do iced coffee every day. I would no longer be on this planet. You'd have to talk to me from Mars or somewhere else. Thank you, everyone. Let's sit together for a moment as we end today. Thank you for this discussion and practice. We are recording this. We will work to get this up because I think just little reminders about why are we waking down? Why are we coming into the body? Why are we attending to this neutral, not that interesting often thing called the breath? Well, there's a reason, and it's really deep. It isn't just for calm. It's really much bigger. It's for wholeness, connectivity, self-regulation, and the capacity of the heart, mind, being to hold everything so that we can heal. So that we can heal. And boy, oh boy, we need it now. We need it. And so gathering yourself, offering it to yourself, coming back to the body, feeling those feet, rising up, connecting to the legs, the hips, the back, the shoulders and arms, coming down the whole front of the body. And letting it breathe, creating space and room. And with each breath, we use the breath as that grounding pole, as that corridor, as a way of the portal coming back into the body. Once again, whole. And remembering that notion of this breathscape being the mirror. The breathscape, this whole anatomy here, particularly being a mirror to the mind, a mirror to being. And oftentimes we use that out breath, as I was suggesting, as a sort of vacuum cleaner really letting go with each out breath of that which is inhibiting, obscuring, obstructing, in the way of that deepened waking down connection. And we soften the belly, clear the mind, and open the heart in wholeness. And may we offer this breath, this practice, this whole and holiness, may we offer it all to the end of suffering and the wish and realization for true abiding happiness and freedom. And we make contact with this bodhicitta heart, this ignited, radiant heart that holds these deep wishes. And we offer it in all directions. We breathe it in for ourselves, we breathe it out, sending it out to those we love, to those in need, to those we like and those we don't like, to the left, to the right, above and below. To those who wear masks and those who don't. To those who will make this day a day of celebration and or a day of condemnation. May we recognize the truth in it all. And that requires this waking down, this becoming a vessel. Isn't it a boundless vessel for holding all truth? Our goodness and our humanness completely enfolded. And no matter our politic, no matter our view taking, may we offer these wishes in all directions to all beings. May we all have happiness and the causes for happiness. And wake that down. Get beyond the idea, deep, deep into the heart, deep into the belly. May we all be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all have gratitude and great joy at our infinite blessings and wish these blessings for others. And then beyond the wish, may we act in such a way as to offer these blessings. May we commit ourselves completely to awakening so as to free ourselves and this world from all afflictions. That we commit ourselves each day to these practices, necessary, always, and necessary now. And may we do so together, knowing that we have each other on this path and that we are not alone. And may we smile at the truth of this and continue with perseverance, with strength, with patience, with generosity and discipline. Until all suffering has been ended. And may this practice today contribute. Happy 4th of July to everyone. May it be so. Thank you all so much. I know there are many celebrations, barbecues, and other lovely ways of celebrating this day, our unity in this day together. So please enjoy. I'll look forward to seeing you on Monday evening at 8 p.m., Tuesday morning at 7, and this Saturdays at 7:30. Next Saturday, we're going to be doing an all day. It will come out in the newsletter tomorrow. And please sign up. It's for Donna only. There's no fee for this, and it will be from about 9 to 4, we're thinking. And I'll be doing that solo this time. Of course, not really. There's always those infinite others contributing, but please join us. And we'll be, that's Saturday, as well as we will be meeting in the morning for normal practice. So I'll look forward to seeing you in any of those. Please join us. Be well, everyone. Happy 4th.